Today we're going to discuss about the validation myths and the common question. The validation is the quality checking process. Once we the student complete and you give the result of competency to them, validation certificate that you received from the resource provider, it's still not meeting the validation requirement of SRTOS 2015. Technically, it's not required to do all the units. We need to do 2 units of competency, and if we find there's a concern or pattern that coming up then or a higher risk in some area, then we need to dig deeper and maybe conduct a few more validation. So the validation is ongoing process, and that also help RTO to do a continuous improvement in the training and assessment. So hello everyone, my name is Ben Thakkar. I'm the CEO and Senior Consultant of Vet Resources. Today we're going to discuss about the validation myths and the common questions and the concern and the non-compliances that we discuss with the clients. I thought we better to communicate this so that way people can learn and improve from those things and make the validation. It's not considered as a hard part. It's something that achievable and can be done if it is systematically approached. So number one myth that we see, that the validation is the same as moderation. So that's why I first want to clarify that the validation is the quality checking process. Once the student complete and you give the result of competency to them, that's where we're checking as part of the validation according to the validation schedule, and that is required by SRTOS 2015. Moderation, it's the activity that we do before we giving the result to the student, just to checking the consistency between each trainer. So that's why there's a difference between validation and moderation, and we're putting some ASQA links about this, so you get more information about it. The second common myth that we get, that the validation certificate provided by a resource provider like us is actually enough to cover up the validation requirement. And because this question or this information we get like many times, I thought let me put that into it. So though it's a good practice, the validation certificate that you received from the resource provider, it's still not meeting the validation requirement of SRTOS 2015. So as you know, that validation needs to be conducted with the student evidence according to that. According to your validation form, you need to take the sample size and complete that according to the validation requirement. The third myth that we get is RTO need to validate all the unit of competency of the qualification. And this is very common. I used to understand the same thing 4 or 5 years ago, because that's how been provided the information. But then after one of the ASQA auditor whom we work together, I think his name is John Price, and he actually taught me all those things, that yeah, you don't have to do all the unit of competency, and he gave me some ASQA reference to read through it. And so technically it's not required to do all the units. We need to do 2 units of competency, and if we find there's a concern or pattern that coming up then or a higher risk in some area, then we need to dig deeper and maybe conduct a few more validation. So that's something we need to be mindful, and we'll be putting some ASQA resources link as well for you to check and verify that as well. The myth number 4 that we usually get is RTO needs to conduct the moderation as well. So it's not required by SRTOS 2015 to conduct a moderation. However, it's a quality process. If RTO has sufficient resources to do it, they should conduct that. This will help to get improvement in consistency and quality overall, but it's not mandatory from a compliance or legislation point of view. The myth number 5 that we get is validation is one-time activity. So what we seen that people say, let's put it in one time and just finish it. What we see, the validation is ongoing process, and that also help RTO to do a continuous improvement in the training and assessment. So that's why the good RTO schedule around the whole year, identify the gaps, and then work towards a continuous improvement of improving assessments. Maybe they identify the gap in understanding of the trainer. Maybe there's no consistency. Maybe need to conduct another session with the trainer. So how can we achieve the consistency in marking and so on and on. So myth number 5 is that only compliance manager is responsible for validation. Though it's a compliance manager or who is doing compliance role is the major part of creating the forms and validation plan and so on and on. But validation, even it's considered as a team activity where you can involve the people from even a student support officer, your compliance person, your trainer assessor, if you sometimes call external people, if you combine all those things, that's where you get the best result based on the experience. The myth number 6 and the last one, validation is only checking a paperwork. As I said before in previous points, that yes, it's part of the document. That's where we're checking our assessment system, the assessment, the student work, and so on. It's not only about the paperwork, it's about the identifying where we are at and improving from it. So, and then it help RTO to constantly improve their assessment practices and say, how can we improve our assessment tools or make it even better if there any gap. How we make sure that is there any gap in trainers' understanding that will help to improve as well. How we make sure that assessment tool complexity is aligned with the student cohort that we have. So there are so many things that can be improved from that. If you like this video, please like. If you have any question, put it on comment. Thank you so much for your time.